Hi RVians, welcome to the 4th episode of RV's Gambit, where we, a group of 44th JC elects, bring you interesting podcasts to spice up your JC life.
I'm Beng from 22J02.
And I'm Ria from 22J06. For today's episode, we'll be talking about various productivity-related questions and problems you've sent us. Let's welcome our guests today, Ms. Dawn Ho and Mr. Leonard Xia.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Miss Ho. I'm a geography teacher. I teach the secondary level.
Yeah, that's the same for me as well. Yeah.
I think without further ado, we can start the questions.
So our first question would be, what is the best time to do work?
Mr. Xia, would you like to go?
What's the best time for you?
I think there's not really a best time. I think best can be defined based on yourself. You need to know yourself best. For me, I'm a morning person, so sometimes I wake up early in the morning to do work because that's when I feel the freshest. But there are some people who can't wake up early in the morning and they work best at night. So it's to really understand what are your bodily needs, what fits yourself better.
And that comes with experience, right? I think I've tried working in the morning, I tried working in the afternoon. Sometimes it all depends on the commitments. Right? Even though sometimes you want to do your work in the morning, but your schedule just can't allow for that, then you have to be a bit more flexible with that. But definitely, I think it's good to have the best time because when you really need to get very productive, knowing the best time will then be your very productive time slot.
The best time for yourself, not really like a best one size fit all best time.
So I guess it's like you have to set a regular time schedule for like yourself, right? So that at a certain time you know you're supposed to be doing work, right?
You try right? You try to know your schedule well enough, then you know roughly, do you prefer the morning or do you prefer the afternoons or even the evenings as well?
I think a lot of students, because we end quite late, so a lot of us end 6 on normal school days. So we are forced to become night owls because there's really no other time for us to finish our work unless we fall asleep the moment we reach home and then we wake up super early to do our work.
That's true.
And I think this part about having to do your stuff really late is related to our next question, which is how can I manage my time more wisely and not be addicted to my phone once I get home?
Addicted actually quite interesting. It sounds like the question is asked with the perspective that you can't stop using the phone even when you want to. Right? That's the ideal addiction. Right? Yeah.
I think with this current climate, this generation, we are all very reliant on our phones. I wouldn't say addicted, but we are all reliant on our phones to a certain extent. So even homework, you receive information from WhatsApp, you receive information from Google Classroom. And between teachers, we also text a lot on WhatsApp. And sometimes we're even doing work on our phones. Yeah. So I think most importantly to answer the phone part of the question is to know why you're using your phone and whether it's for productive use. I manage my time. I use my phone to help me manage my time actually. So I plan a lot of my schedules on my phone. My calendars are all on my phone, and I use it to send reminders for myself. So I would think to some extent my phone helps me lah. But I would think if you are addicted, you guys would mean playing games.
I think what I'm trying to say is also that phone is not necessarily a bad thing, right? You're trying to say is how the user, right? How do you use the phone, and that's where you decide whether it's a problem or not.
I'm thinking, when I get home, right, I just lie on my bed and then I want a nap. And then after that, I just start using my phone instead. I'm like, let's go and scroll Instagram or something.
There's a term for it, right? This scrolling.
Revenge bedtime procrastination.
Lying down in school. My trick to that, or what I do is I set aside time to do the scrolling. So instead of, it's kind of the opposite. So let's say I have 2 hours, right? Instead of saying that I will work for 1.5 hours and that's my focus, I would say that I only going to spend a maximum of 30 minutes to do whatever. I do play games now on my phone. So I want to play 30 minutes maximum. So I decide, do I want to work first, then I play 30 minutes, or I play 30 minutes, then I work for 1.5 hours. So I think for me, I set a limit on how much I play and it becomes like a reward. Maybe that helps, I don't know.
I do mindless scrolling as well. On days that I'm super tired, I scroll TikTok a lot. So I just came from a CID4 discussion, and a group is working on TikTok. Yeah, so they were discussing how long they spend on TikTok, and like, oh, this boy said, oh, I spend 1 hour, and then this girl was like, huh, 1 hour so little. This boy was like, oh, I have a friend who spends 3 hours, and yeah, basically, I mean, there shouldn't be a time limit to how much you spend on the app, like be it like Instagram, YouTube, or like TikTok. But most importantly, yeah, like you should know the purpose of it, lah. So my mindless scrolling comes when like I really just want to absorb entertainment without like thinking. Yeah, because sometimes like dramas, you take in a lot of, it takes up a lot of like emotional energy. Yeah, so I guess TikTok will help. Just like 16 seconds of like happiness, like laughter.
Like 100.
Yeah.
100 videos of 16 seconds.
Yeah, but you need to know when to stop, lor. Yeah, there are some days where I know that I need to work, then I won't be using TikTok, lah. But there are some weeks where I'm really tired and I know that I need to rest, and of course I cater that rest for myself, lah. Yeah. So I would think managing time more wisely. Some people, like for some people, I guess structure would work. So working out a fixed structure might be helpful. But I guess if you are someone who goes with the flow, then maybe you can set by the day. So today, perhaps what do you want to achieve, and then you set aside time for that. Then that might work for you. Not necessarily to have a fixed routine all the time.
Yeah. So actually that brings us to like our next question, which is how do I stop procrastinating?
I think that's impossible.
I mean,
Only reduce, I think.
if you guys have set the question in mind thinking that teachers don't procrastinate, yeah, you are wrong, because we do procrastinate because we are humans, right? Yeah.
So I think first, I guess you have to find out why are you procrastinating us, and often it's actually very real reasons why we procrastinate. Sometimes it's because we are overly stressful. Sometimes there's just too many things to do, where to the point where you just think, heck it, I'm just not gonna do that. Right, that's it. I'm just gonna stop and then go and lie on my bed and not think about it until days later. Sometimes procrastination can also be quite helpful on certain deadlines. I don't know. Like as a student, I do see myself procrastinating, and in the last 2 hours before the deadline, I'm super duper productive. And sometimes that helps lah, I guess, on certain days. But I would say procrastination happens to all of us. More importantly is understand why are you procrastinating. Maybe there's some deeper reasons lah, that maybe you're avoiding the issue.
So I used to think that so I procrastinate a lot, yeah. I think I work best with time pressure, yeah, and procrastination, I mean, it serves that towards the end, but I mean, sometimes I feel stressed that I'm procrastinating also, but I don't do anything about it, right? I think when I was younger, I used to think that my procrastination is because I'm lazy, right? Yeah, then I'll keep questioning like, oh, why am I so lazy? Why are my other friends like so much more productive than I am? But I think what Mr. Xiao said is right, Lord. So you need to know why is it that you're procrastinating. Sometimes if you are truly tired and burnt out, then perhaps you deserve that rest. Okay, it's not wrong to procrastinate. Like sometimes, if let's say you procrastinate just because you want to, just because you don't want to
Escape.
do work, just because you want to escape, then you perhaps need to find out the reason why you're escaping. Is that something that you're fearful of? Yeah. For me, I procrastinate when I feel that something is too challenging.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think for me as well.
Yeah.
And that probably is for many people.
Especially, I'm not sure if you all would have heard of it. Like if you all are perfectionists, or if you tend to want to seek perfection, tasks that might challenge you you tend to procrastinate on these tasks even more because you're afraid of making mistakes, right? Yeah, but whenever I think about times where I procrastinate and how challenging that task might be, then sometimes all it takes is for me to just sit down and like write down step by step what is it that I have to do.
Actually, that works for me as well. And I was going to come to that.
Yeah, and then it helps lah.
Yeah, so sometimes for me, I think that's where Miss Ho also does the same. For a big task, I need to break it down. And I mean, knowing the deadline is very important. So having a foresight. Then after that, I will start to break down how many days I need for each step. And I'll try to make the first step easy to do. Something small, not so stressful. Maybe even a 5-minute step will help. more importantly, in planning out the days, I think it helps me keep a sense of progress so that I know that sometimes it helps also because I know that if I don't do it today, because I already planned out the days, right? If I don't do it today, means this thing I have to do it tomorrow. And that helps to keep a sense of pace. Like, okay, I must do it, these small things together so that tomorrow it'll be easier, and then this continues. So breaking down the task, I think, does help with the stopping procrastination.
But I feel like sometimes I have a plan, right? And then I don't stick to it at all.
And then you feel stressed towards the end because you suddenly have too many things to do.
Yeah.
So for that, I keep things flexible. There are many reasons why you don't stick to the plan. Maybe in the first place, the plan was a bit too ambitious. Right? So we need to be a bit more flexible. But sometimes it's not really our choice. Sometimes it's because a sudden last-minute test, or a last-minute homework, or your friends really need your time to tell you about their day or something they're struggling with. And I think having a plan helps because then you have to choose. Because it's laid out in front of you, right? Is my friend's emotional well-being more important at this time? Or is this task that I need to complete? Because if I don't do it in 1 week, it's going to be due. Then you can weigh up. I feel like sometimes when we don't do that, then we are making decisions without any sense of what is the repercussions, right? How does this affect my other life agendas or ambitions?
I think for us who procrastinate also, perhaps to help us like start our engines going. What might work is really to list out the things that you need to do. Like if at any point in time you realize that you're procrastinating and then you're wondering why you're like that, like hating yourself or like being lazy. So perhaps just sit down or note down like the things you need to do and attempt the easier task first. Then once you feel like you're able to
a bit more confident, right?
You're able to progress, then you attempt the more difficult ones. So it becomes easier to slowly complete your task list. If not, it will become too daunting for you.
I think a certain amount of procrastination is normal for everyone, but when it gets excessive, that's the point where we need to start actually getting a hold of ourselves and getting our life together. And for our next question, it's how do teachers identify burnout? And I think this question is kind of related to the procrastination part, because when you start to procrastinate too much, that's when you start to realize that something is wrong and you probably need to do something about your schedule. So is there a way that you identify burnout in either yourselves or in your students?
Maybe you can talk about identifying burnout in students first, right? Because that's what we see on a day-to-day basis. I would think when burnout happens when you feel, or when a person experiences a change in mood, or so emotionally there's a change in mood, and then that leads to physical or physiological changes in the person, right? So usually in the classroom, whenever we see a student being not him or herself, being too down and lacking in energy, feeling like there's no there's a lack of purpose or motivation in the things that he or she is doing, then perhaps that's the first sign of burnout.
Sometimes also, negative emotions definitely, but I also know some students who want to hide their burnout, that they are feeling a lot of stress, and I think that's where teachers also spot. I think we can spot when you are slightly different, right? Not yourself, you are not behaving usually how you would behave. So sometimes I know some students where they will act overly positive, they'll suddenly also perk up, and then you realize actually this is also not how so that's where also a sign that something is off about the student. But I think the emotions, I think what we're trying to say is the emotions is definitely a very clear sign. Burnout often also come with the symptoms that you start to lose a sense of purpose in a lot of things that you do. You don't see any reason for why is this important. Sometimes also then it leads to a kind of existential crisis. You wonder, if I don't submit this homework, so what? Right? If I don't do this test and I fail it, so what's the point? And that's when I think these are other signs, even among adults and teachers as well, and I guess students also.
I think also another way would be, if I were to try to identify burnout in myself, it would be, whether I actually feel joy in doing what I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, we sign up for things, we commit ourselves to things because we want to do it, right? Yeah. And if we don't find that meaning in doing whatever that we're doing anymore, then perhaps that's a sign that like we are exhausted and we are doing it just for the sake of completion.
Yeah. To add to joy, I will probably add the emotion curious as well. Often we just want to find out, right? How is it like to try to do this new committee that I joined, or this new CCA, or this new piece of music, or this new exercise, right? All these are, I think, sometimes you try it and then you realize it's not for you, right? But it's that sense of curiosity, like try new things. I think that's also, when you lose that, you realize you're not as curious about meeting new people, talking to new people, finding out new things, learning about the world. And I think those are signs as well.
I think other than looking at how you can take a break from cutting back, also very importantly is to identify what helps you recharge. Yeah, like I think we all have different ways to recharge. Sometimes it's just to reconnect with your family, or to
hang out with friends.
Yeah, hang out with friends. Or,
chat.
yeah, sometimes it's like maybe exercising. Sometimes it's just like scrolling TikTok or scrolling Instagram, playing games. Food. Binging on like certain foods. These are just small ways of. You can see it as like treating yourself to small joys, right? Like comfort, all these small bouts of comfort that you have. Yeah, so besides just cutting back, you should also know how to take care of yourself by providing your body all these necessary needs. Yeah, I think as you talk about burnout, an experience I have would be I've always thought that like a way for myself like to recharge, right, is exercising. So just now we're talking about emotional and physical burnout, right? I guess there was a period when I felt super stretched with work. So the more stretched I felt, the more I exercised. And then towards the end, I really felt like, I was burnt out, like emotionally and physically, because my body cannot handle so much exercise. So like every other day I'm like running, I'm doing yoga, so my body started getting injured also.
So I think that's like a threshold, right?
Yeah.
But in between, perhaps at the start, you're still managing, right? You could use your exercise as a recharge, and you still can.
Yeah.
But then it passed a certain threshold, and then it went out of control.
Yeah. So I guess the most important thing is to know that you cannot do too much of something.
Spot.
Yeah, you must know how to balance, how to have a equal amount of everything.
But it comes with a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Which, the students, I guess this is the phase you all go through. For me and Miss Ho to reach this stage, then you have to go through your stage also now.
So I think it's really been some like great advice on the like ideas of burnout, commitment, and like being productive. So just a few last words. Do you guys have like anything in general to say to like students who feel like very bad about themselves for like procrastinating or doing work slowly?
Procrastinating or doing work slowly? Okay, maybe I'll address the doing work slowly part first. I think the teachers who have would have said this like a lot of times, all the time, that like you shouldn't compare yourself with like others. Like, I guess we all progress differently in various aspects as well, and we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. Like someone may be super good with languages and writing essays, but just can't do math at all. And I think that's fine. Or someone can be very, very good at like calculations, math, sciences, but like not be very good at like perhaps maybe essay writing and all that. And that is okay also. I think it's all about understanding yourself, right? I think we have talked about this also, like throughout the whole podcast. Like, you should understand yourself, know what your body needs, what's your own strength and weakness, and to tell yourself that it's okay to not be good at everything. Yeah, because no one is perfect, and we are all made differently. We are all shaped differently. And that is what makes I guess humans different, right? All relationships are built upon like all these differences that we have. Yeah. So don't have to be so harsh on yourself if you are slower, as long as you know what your strengths are and just work on the strengths and also take your time to build on your weaknesses. Not avoid them, but to slowly build on them.
Yeah, and I think that brings us to the end of our first segment. So thank you, Ms. Ho and Mr. Xia. And yeah, so I think we'll be moving on to the next section, which is where me and Beng will be answering your questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the second segment of this episode. The first question is, how do I better handle stress?
I think the most important thing really is to understand that whatever is stressing you isn't the end of the world. Like, I think there was one time, like 2 weeks ago, where I was vice director of a science competition, and I had another science competition to go for, and I felt like, if I mess this up, it's over for me. I'm not gonna be like SLA press next year. And then, I thought, it's not the end of the world. The fact that I'm in these competitions means that I'm already doing quite well. And the fact is that a lot of the involvements that are in are something extra. And if I'm bad at that, it's not really something I need to be stressed about because I'm already good at what is basic. And for those people who feel that, they're not good at being basic, their grades are not good, then I'll tell them there's really a lot of things that you can do wrong before something really bad actually happens. Right? I'm not telling you that you should slack because you probably shouldn't. But I'm just telling you that whatever you're doing isn't really as important in the grand scheme of things as you think it is. And you shouldn't worry about it that much.
Yeah, and I think if you're stressed, right, the most important thing is to try and find like a healthier outlet for it. And a healthy outlet would mean something like reading or writing or drawing or like exercising if you like exercising, but I do not like exercising personally. And I think healthy habits are a lot more effective at helping you de-stress than if you were to compare it to like scrolling social media, because it's very tempting to like just lie on your bed and scroll Instagram or YouTube for like 2 hours. But the thing is, when you get up from bed and you walk away from that and you go back to your work, you don't actually feel so re-energized. It's more of like you distracted yourself for 2 hours and then you are back in a similar mental state, maybe doing even worse than before. So comparing times when I go online to distract myself versus when I actually engage in the things that I like, I think that trying to find something that is healthy and actually lets your brain relax is a lot more important than just distracting yourself for a while.
Yeah, I think one of the important things is to really address the underlying cause of the stress. So let's say like I have a test coming out and I'm feeling stressed because my revision isn't complete. Now, I think that sometimes people feel stressed and then they procrastinate because they want to think about that test. They don't want to think about it. But I feel that as like someone who does not want to be stressed, I want to resolve the underlying cause. So I want to work on that cause.
Yeah. And also if there are like certain causes or certain things that are stressing you out too much, and this can range from like anything from like people or your work or specific commitments. If it's really stressing you out too much, don't be afraid to drop it, because nothing is worth risking your mental health. And yeah, if it's really too much, just drop it. Don't be afraid to say no. Yeah.
Yeah. So our next question would be, how do I get motivated to do my work?
Yeah, motivation. Motivation is a struggle that I think everyone faces, especially me. So I don't know if the people listening to this can relate to this, but every time the weekend rolls around, I keep telling myself that I will wake up early the next morning and then I will do work, and then I end up sleeping in, and then even after sleeping in, I end up taking like 10 naps that day and I just don't get work done. So it's very important to be able to like get your mind into the mode and recognize that you are going to do work that day, like maybe from the moment you wake up. So one thing that I do that sometimes works when I remember to do it is this thing called the 3-2-1 method. So basically it works for things that are like need that burst of energy to like get out of bed or like get off scrolling social media. So how it works is that you count 3-2-1 in your head, and then by the time you count to 1, you need to get up and do your work. And if you're thinking like maybe you might not be motivated to get up even after you count to 1, you just imagine to yourself, like for example, if I don't get up at the count of 1, I will fail my next exam. Yeah, so if you have a thought like that in your head, you will definitely get up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that extreme, but I mean, sometimes I wake up in the morning and then I just think, I see a teacher's face looking at me and then I'm like, oh shit, I gotta do my work now. But I also think that it's really important to realize like what your motivation comes from. So one of the things that you can do like quite specifically is to really look at your mood and see whether you feel like doing work or not. And if you feel tired, you probably shouldn't do your work. You should take a break, because like 1 hour of like wakeful work is like much better than 2 hours of sleepy work.
Yeah, and also about staying awake while doing your work. So one thing that I do, which I think maybe a lot of us do, is calling your friends to make sure like you don't like you keep each other on track and make sure that you don't end up slacking or falling asleep. So what works best for me is calling like 1 or 2 friends over Google Meet. So not too many people, because like that it's very easy for you to like everyone to start a conversation, then everything gets out of hand. So just 1 or 2 people. And the most important part is sharing your screen. So I know that people might not be comfortable with sharing a screen, so maybe sharing like a specific tab or a specific window. But the main part is getting someone else to watch over your work while you are doing it, and it allows you to keep each other updated on your progress while you do it. So the pros of this method is that you can keep an eye on each other, and I think you're more motivated to do work because that's what works for me. And that also works especially if you're doing the same assignment. But the cons to this is that it's easy to get distracted. Like, for example, if you start talking, because you will start talking like for 5 minutes and it'll turn to 10 minutes and then you just don't stop. So if need be, mute yourselves. Or if you don't want to mute yourselves, then you can also try to play music in the background. So just anything that stops the both of you from getting distracted together instead of doing work together. Yeah.
I think another important thing is to really set a long-term goal for yourself, because I feel like sometimes a lot of people are like, they're high on copium. They're like, I'm going to get A for this test. I'm going to study so hard next week. And then after that, they think, oh, actually that was not a realistic goal. I don't want to get A. I'm just going to do the best that I can. And then they tell themselves they're going to do the best that they can. But after that, they don't even know what the best they can do is. So they set an unrealistic goal for themselves and they don't meet it. So the important thing is to see where am I at now? Where am I going to be in the future? What do I want to be in the future in terms of my grades, and set that goal. And you tell yourself that, something good is going to happen if you meet that goal, and you can reward yourself for that. So if you set that sort of goal, it will really be very useful.
Yeah. And then for our next question, it's a scenario-based question. So I'm not sure how to balance all the commitments I have, for example, CCA, third language, second CCA, but I also don't want to quit any of them.
I think that on a certain level, it's like about scheduling, right? Because if you know that a busy period is going to happen, like you got to do your work early and like spread out the workload more. So for me, right, as like my earlier example, I was planning a science competition and also had a science competition. And then when that happened, I was like, I think I'm like going to be so not energetic during that period. I'm going to be like, full of work during that period. So I did one of my assignments 3 weeks early. Like it was due in term 2 week 3. I did it during the March holidays. Wow. And I felt so impressed at myself for doing that. But I think what I really want to say here, right, is that if you know that you have a lot of commitments, it's definitely not going to be evenly spread. You're going to have a peak period and a low period. So during that low period, you should transfer some work over to make sure that you can manage your workload.
Yeah, and actually, honestly, this question feels like a personal attack to me because I overcommit a lot. So yeah, I actually do this question, like I relate to it on a very personal level. And for me, my situation is that I really enjoy everything that I'm involved in, and I have a lot of ideas and things that I want to do. So I've really been like quite invested in a lot of my commitments for quite a while, and I'm definitely not leaning towards quitting any of them anytime soon. But at the end of the day, it really depends on how well you can cope with it, because actually only you know how you can cope with it best. And the same workload can look different on everyone. So there are some people who can thrive under like a heavy workload, and then there are some people who just really cannot take it. So it's up to you how you think you can handle it as a person. And if you think it's too much, again, don't be afraid to say no or just drop whatever commitment. And if you feel like you are interested enough to keep going, that's good. But also remember to pace yourself and don't be too hard on yourself also. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if you're really busy but you really enjoy what you do, you should like really keep doing it. But I also want to bring up some of the points that like Ms. Ho and Mr. Xia talked about just now. They say that a lot of us as RVians, we feel bad about quitting things, right? But I want to say that you really need to put yourself first. And it's like not really a selfish thing at all. You realize that if you don't put yourself first and you suffer, there'll be like those around you who are relying on you, and they'll suffer as well because they have to like pick up the slack when you yourself are not doing well. So you really have to take care of yourself first. And that, I think, is really the most important thing when you look at the level of commitments that you have.
Yeah. Personally, for me, recently I had to drop like one of the commitments that I really, really enjoy. But I also realized that it takes up a lot of time on a weekly basis, and if I'm not going to be able to like give my all during sessions, then it's probably better if I quit, because the main thing is that I should be there, and when I am there, then I need to be able to put in my 100%. So if you feel like having too many things at the same time means that you can't give your 100% everything, then it might be for the best that you quit some things. Yeah.
Right, so I would say the next question that you have would be, how do I do my work more efficiently?
Yeah, I think, okay, honestly, if you do like a quick Google search, you will find like some of the things I'm going to say next like very quickly. So one thing is the Pomodoro method. So I think that's like a 45-minute work session and then like a 15-minute break, something like that. I'm not very sure. But basically it's something like that. So you have like a scheduled work session and a scheduled break time. So that's really how you keep yourself motivated through your work session. Another thing would be study with me videos. So this is the alternative when you can't find a friend to call. So you just keep someone there and you watch them study, and sometimes you feel like you have to keep up with their progress. And other than that would be calling your friends, and that's some of the things that I would do.
Yeah, I think another thing that you should do is to like have a specific study time. But more important than that, I know that some people can't schedule their time. So you must have a specific and a conducive study place. So for me, that study place would be like the desktop, not the desktop, the tabletop at my room. And I only do my work there. I don't do my work anywhere else, because I know that if I do my work anywhere else and I have my phone next to me, I'll be like, I need to scroll Reddit.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about doing work efficiently would be getting started. So you really need to convince yourself to actually get into the work mode and actually do the work. So if you really find yourself in a state where you're just like lying in bed, you just really can't bring yourself to do any work, one thing you can do is just convince yourself that you will do whatever it is that you need to do for 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes of doing that, you judge your mental state. And then if you feel like you can if you can keep going, you just keep going. But if you can't take it, just feel free to take a small break, maybe 5 minutes, and then you can come back again for this to your original commitment for another 10 minutes, and then just keep it going, because at the end of the day, any progress is still some kind of progress.
Yeah, I feel kind of intimidated that you said that you should look at your mental state after 10 minutes. But I think that really is about finding a way to be focused on your work. So, I mean, for me, I just pull out my phone and I have Inazuma OST track 1 from Genshin Impact playing. And then after that, I just don't touch my phone any further, because I think that phone is really an evil object.
And on being productive, our next question is it very important to be productive?
Yeah, I would say that this is really a way for us to wrap up this podcast, because I know that even though the answer is really that is indeed important for you to be productive, and I really want to help you become a more productive individual. The important thing is that you shouldn't let your work take over everything else, and to enjoy your work. I feel like we live in a society, and our society has that thing where the more busy you are, the more people think you're a successful person, the more people think you're a hardworking person, but that is not the case. And your work shouldn't take over your life.
Yeah, back on the point, I think one of the teachers mentioned just now, we are all humans, so don't think of yourself as a robot or a machine, because nobody is capable of being completely fully productive every waking minute of their lives. So don't guilt yourself if you're having a lazy day, or even a few lazy days, because it's okay to take a while to do nothing at all and just exist, because existing is hard enough really, honestly. And it's okay to take a while to do the non-productive things that you like. Yeah.
Yep. So I think that the most important thing is that even though people talk about work-life balance, your work should be balanced with your life, I think it's not very true that your work and your life are diametrically opposed. I think what is more true is that you should enjoy your work as best as you can, because in the end, I think that everyone wants to find happiness in their life, and they need to enjoy their work. So I mean, if I graduate, I'd rather do something that's lower paid but it's fun.
Yeah, and another point I want to re-emphasize is that your value does not revolve around how productive you are. So it's very easy to fall into a trap of thinking that your value is what you can put on a resume or what you can put on your future uni applications, and that is what defines you. And this concept sounds very overused, but it does not actually define you. And if you are going to cultivate a mindset like this very early on in your life, this will be the mindset that will probably wreck you later on in your life, because once you form this attitude, it will probably be very hard to break. And your life should not be, spent chasing after professional or academic validation. And related to this, I have a quote that I like a lot, which is related to the value of your life. So the quote is by this evolutionary biologist called Richard Dawkins, and he wrote a book called Unweaving the Rainbow. And in the book, there's a sentence that says, "In the teeth of these stupefying odds, it is you and I in our ordinariness that are here." So basically, you only get one chance at your life, and it's very sad if you're going to spend your entire life being miserable and chasing after what other people think of you. So don't be unfair to yourself, and don't weigh yourself down with the unhappiness of an unhealthy mindset. Yeah, and yeah, with that quote, I guess that brings us to the end of today's session of RV's Gambit. So we hope you find our opinions interesting. And again, since we'll be posting this as a YouTube video, do leave comments on what you think.
We'll also be likely uploading this podcast on Spotify for those who prefer just listening, so do keep a lookout for that. The link will also be on our stories and a chairperson message. So once again, thank you for listening.